Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Monday, the 26th of September, 2022. These are the stories that we will be discussing in detail during the course of the show. We'll discuss, first of all, the extent of damage that has been done because of the floods, and of course, the relief and rehabilitation work that is being done as we speak. Also, the address of our Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif Saab, to the United Nations General Assembly, in which he highlighted the plight of Pakistan following the floods and how Pakistan is not to blame for all the floods that have happened, but in fact it was those countries that are implied in climate change, because Pakistan emits less than 1% of carbon emission. Also, flood relief activities are going on from different quarters, whether it be from the government, from the armed forces, from the NGOs, and other different important friendly countries that are also sending relief goods from airplanes or through trains, as Turkey has done very recently. Also, a preliminary assessment by the United Nations Satellite Center indicates that flood waters are increasing in some districts, 8 in Sindh, 2 in Balochistan, 1 in Punjab, and of course this and more would be discussed in detail during the course of our first segment. Our second story or second segment concerns Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and Indian troops in their fresh act of state terrorism very recently have martyred 2 Kashmiri youth in Kupwara district on Sunday. This is nothing new. We always try to highlight as much as we can, because this is an ongoing spate of brutalities that the Indian government and the forces are perpetrating. Also, the Kashmiri leaders are highlighting this very thing on the international arena as well, whether it be New York, whether it be in Geneva, or whether it be very recently again in the United States of America, where there were many Kashmiri leaders that got together while Mr. Jaishankar was giving his speech at the United Nations General Assembly. This is going to be our second story of the day. Our third story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the martyrdom of 6 Pakistan Army officials, including 2 majors, as their helicopter crashed during a flying mission near Host in Harnai in Balochistan. Their funeral prayers were also offered at the Quetta garrison in Balochistan, and heartfelt condolences have poured in from all quarters, whether it be from our Prime Minister, whether it be from our Minister, or whether it be from different leaders of different political parties. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we will take you to Europe, where Italian right-wing leader Giorgia Meloni, whose party has come on top as far as general elections are concerned, said that she is going to seek the next government in Italy and will work for all Italians. Whether she does or not, only time will tell. Nevertheless, another change as far as right governments in the European Union is concerned. This is going to be our last story. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns flood relief and rehabilitation, and of course how our government and our Prime Minister have highlighted the plight of the Pakistani people in international arena, especially the United Nations General Assembly. More in the following report.
Pakistan is grappling with devastating consequences of floods as monsoon rains of biblical proportions smashed centuries of weather records. With huge swathes of country still underwater following recent mega floods, Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif appealed for global support to help face the consequences of a climate catastrophe at 77th session of United Nations General Assembly. Prime Minister noted that some 33 million people are now at risk of health hazards. More than 13,000 kilometers of roads have been damaged, 1 million homes have been destroyed, and another million damaged, and 4 million acres of crops have been washed away. On his visit to Pakistan earlier this month, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he had never seen climate change on this scale and called for urgent financial support to help Pakistan, saying it is not just a question of solidarity but a question of justice. The dual cost of global inaction and climate injustice are having crippling effect on developing world, and the world must realize the importance of implementation of climate change agenda in accordance with principles of common but differentiated responsibility. By COP27, we must secure the fulfillment of pledge by the industrialized countries to provide $100 billion plus annually in climate finance, allocate half of this in climate adaptation, and establish a financing facility to compensate developing countries for loss and damage from climate impact.
Mustafa Abdullah Baloch, who is the leading analyst, joins us online. Mustafa, thank you very much to have joined us. Mustafa, when our Prime Minister talks about the plight of Pakistan and the people following the devastating floods in our country, do you think the world understands, and do you think the world will react as it needs to?
Thank you, Omar, for having me on your show. And yes, I guess certainly the world has understood, and the world has taken this devastating situation which Pakistan is facing right now. And the Prime Minister has amazingly, put forward the case of Pakistan, because obviously the climate change is not in our control, and Pakistan has been a victim of that, despite not in giving any input in pollution. So I think this is very serious concern, and the world will definitely each country by their own capacity they will definitely come forward, and they are coming forward, and because obviously the media has also played a very important role in projecting the intensity of crisis which Pakistan is facing. Obviously 33 million have been people have been affected by this devastating flood catastrophe, and apart from that 8,000 animals just in one district have died. So you can imagine the crisis we are going to face in livestock. And apart from that, a lot of diseases like malaria and gastro
Of
diseases
course.
and skin diseases have been
Because Mustafa, the
spread
fact
out.
remains that at this moment we are waiting for the flood water to recede. Once it recedes, will we truly know the extent of the damage that has occurred in different parts of the country? We already have assessed more or less the damage that is worth 20 billion US dollars or maybe even more, but I think it's going to exceed much more than what estimates we have put in. Nevertheless, the real extent of damage I also feel is going to be extremely higher than what has been expected or has been predicted by the different authorities, whether it be Pakistani or international. In this whole spate of events, when our Prime Minister also highlights it at the United Nations General Assembly, do you feel, because the United Nations, had pledged $160 million, of which not much has come in, do you feel the countries are also reluctant, or is there some other reason due to which the countries are not as aggressive in their help to Pakistan as they should be? I'm talking about monetary help. Of course we know that through different airplanes many countries are sending aid, but is that enough?
Yes, I somehow I agree with this thing, that the way the international community should have come forward before even Pakistan asking about help. They should have initiated it abruptly, but it was not that kind of response which we expected from the international community. That's true, but unfortunately we are not in a position that we can do it on our own. We need a certain kind of help from the international community, and I suppose the way Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto has engaged in UNGA, and he has given an impression that yes, we have a lot of debt and we are going to repay it. We are not asking for any cancellation of the debt, but we need some time. We need some time because at this situation we cannot satisfy IMF. We need some kind of support from the UN. We need some kind of support from the US. We need some kind of support from the European Union.
That's a very interesting point. When you talk of rescheduling of the current debt schemes that Pakistan is involved in, do you feel also that there is going to be a prompt response by the international organizations that include, of course, the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, IMF, and other lending organizations that Pakistan is, of course, working alongside with?
Yes, I suppose there will be there would be a response, but apart from getting relief in debt by IMF, we have a lot of more serious concerns about how we will translate it into actual rehabilitation of people and rebuilding the whole infrastructure which has been destroyed totally. 1/3 of the country is still underwater, so the intensity is huge, and the crisis is never experienced by at least generations of us, like senior generations or maybe our generation. So this is a very, I guess, this is like very serious concern, which I feel that slowly and gradually all the countries who have been silent in this, now they are understanding the intensity, and definitely if Pakistan plays a very important role in this region, they have to rescue Pakistan from this, because be it US or be it Russia, they need Pakistan to stabilize.
All right, Mustafa, there is a difference between having to rescue and actually rescuing. There is a thin line or not between the two, between the pledges and the action. As we've seen in the past also,
True.
a lot of pledges are made, but they not always translate into action. In Pakistan's case, how much probable is the fact that the action that different countries have pledged is going to actually happen? All right, we have to go to a short break, Mustafa. We'll be right back after to discuss more on that. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom, and we're discussing the relief and rehabilitation efforts by the government and the need for the world body to come together to help Pakistan in this hour of need. Mustafa joins us online, and we've been talking to him for some time. Mustafa Abdullah Baloch, you were telling me a little bit, and we had to be cut short by the news break. Could you kindly give us your point of view as far as the question that I had asked?
Well, Omar, firstly, the way you were saying that why there's a thin line between pledging for a certain aid and then actually giving the aid, and why there is not such kind of seriousness from the international community. I guess there's one reason which is maybe making them reluctant is the political uncertainty which today Pakistan is in. The way unfortunately, the information minister of Pakistan was treated yesterday in UK. That was very awful, image, and it didn't translate into something good. So
because unfortunately, whatever our citizens do in whichever country of the world reflects on the state of our country, and of course, the fingers are pointed at how our country maneuvers and operates in the wake of all such events.
That actually translates that how the seriousness of the people and of a party that claims to be popular in Pakistan, and the leader of the party, Imran Khan, he has been constantly keeping himself busy in holding public rallies and gatherings and all that. Rather, he should have
Mustafa, don't you feel that Mustafa, don't you feel it is the time that all the political parties, irrespective of their points of views or political affiliations or differences, should come together as one to help Pakistan come out of this current crisis? Once Pakistan is out of this crisis, whether it be economic or otherwise the plight of the people, then they can politic as much as they want. But at this time, the need is for everybody to be on one page. Isn't that true?
True, 100% true. And I believe that this is the time where as a nation we need to be together. We need to keep our own personal grievances aside, and we need to join hands to save the people. We are expecting them to vote for us in this situation. I mean, how can you even think of that? I mean, no political party is even thinking about elections, and here there is a party who considers itself as a very popular party, and it has been constantly non-serious about the giving a certain kind of rescue to the flood victims, and is not even giving any positive role in making IMF reconsider about the deaths and all that, as they consider themselves popular abroad. So point is that this is a very unfortunate thing, and I guess this is the thing which is not giving a positive signal.
When you talk of unfortunate events or whatever points of views as far as our political scenario is concerned, let's talk of statistics as far as the damage caused by these floods is concerned. Our Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif Sahab, when he talked in the United Nations General Assembly, talked about more than 1,500 people who've perished, including 400 children, far more due to the disease. I've been affected, and you talked about those diseases, whether it be waterborne or otherwise, so many diseases, snake bites, dog bites, and whatnot. More than 13,000 kilometers of metal road damaged, 370 bridges swept, 1 million homes destroyed, another million damaged, more than 1 million farm animals killed, 4 million acres of crops washed away. Life in Pakistan has changed forever, quote unquote. This is what our Prime Minister said. Will we ever come out of it? How long, in your point of view, will it take for Pakistan to stand back on its feet after such a calamity?
Omar, it will take years. Honestly speaking, the way the intensity of the damage that has happened, unfortunately, it will take years, because the people living in villages and people living in small towns, they are homeless now. They are living in tents. You need to give them houses. You need to give them jobs again. You need to give them food. You need to give them shelter. So we have to rebuild and kind of stand back on our feet, and it will take time. It won't be easy for us. That's what I'm saying. This is the time to unite and make the people feel that yes, we are with them. We are not doing any sort of politics. We are not busy with our own vested interests. We are working for them, not for us. So this is something which, as the PM exactly as he said in United Nations, that all the facts are very, very shocking, and I believe that there are a lot of things which we still don't know, we don't have, because the media has still not penetrated in those areas.
But you know, the real facts and figures,
done.
in my point of view, Mustafa, will only come out in about a month's time, when most of the water would have receded from the areas, and then we'll know exactly the damage that has been caused. But already the damage that, as cited by our Prime Minister, is extremely is extensive, is something that Pakistan has never seen in its more than 70 years of history. Antonio Guterres said, and I also quote our Prime Minister when he said that at the United Nations General Assembly, that what Pakistan has witnessed as far as monsoon is a monsoon on steroids. Impacts on health and the wealth of our country. 11 million people pushed below the poverty line. Our manpower and resources totally overwhelmed. And here I am quoting the Prime Minister as well at the United Nations General Assembly session. Can Pakistan mobilize its own resources? How much resources can Pakistan mobilize on its own, through the Pakistani expatriates, through the Pakistani companies, through the Pakistani people themselves, to help those in need? What should be the percentage of Pakistan helping itself and the world body helping Pakistan?
I guess Pakistan needs to help itself. We can't rely on others, and I believe that Pakistan will, the people of Pakistan, they will help the people, and they will help the affectees, and they will unite, and they have done it previously in 2010 flood. The people of Pakistan, they helped the people, and they were for themselves. So I guess this is like 60-70% we have to do it on our own. We can't just sit and just rely on others.
All right. Mustafa, I'd also like to refer to Bilawal Bhutto Zardari Sahab, our foreign minister, who on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly chaired this G77 ministerial meeting of foreign affairs. There he talked about the triple interlocking crises of the triple Fs: food, fuel and finance. And he talked about emergency actions that could be taken to deal with the situation. He talked about mobilizing urgent humanitarian, economic and financial support, SGD stimulus of 500 billion to enable all those countries, including Pakistan, preparing emergency food supplies through the World Food Programme, ensuring availability of energy, especially gas, mobilizing universal availability of COVID-19 vaccines, and urgent and adequate assistance of all the countries that are suffering from the impacts of climate change. G77 is also a very important organization that could also help. So is the United Nations, so is the SCO, and so many others. Do you feel the whole modus operandi of the organizations should change in the wake of climate change crisis that Pakistan has encountered? Because today it could happen in Pakistan, tomorrow it could happen in another country.
Exactly. This is something which they should realize, and I guess if they don't realize, it's like Pakistan will somehow get out of it, and Pakistan will. I hope this is maybe a learning lesson for us, that we need to work for ourselves. We need to work on climate change. We need to change the infrastructure. We need to build better irrigation system. We need to build dams. We need to have a better as I told in my previous show with you, that Netherlands, they learned from the floods. They learned after getting a lot of destruction in the 50s. They learned from that crisis, and they rebuilt themselves. And today they are the safest country in the world. So Pakistan will somehow, we are a strong nation. We will definitely come out of this crisis. But the world must realize that today it's Pakistan. Tomorrow there can be any other country.
Mustafa, finally, I'd like a short answer. What should be the priorities of the government now as far as relief and rehabilitation and restructuring and rebuilding of Pakistan is concerned post these devastating floods? What should be the priority, the first 5 priorities that Pakistan needs to have?
The first priority should be reaching out to all those affectees and providing them food and temporary shelter. That's like very important, and they need to. The government has to also engage with all those NGOs and all those organizations that are doing on their own, and I guess they are doing so. And this will certainly, at least give first relief to those people who are helpless, sitting under the sky, and they are waiting for some kind of relief.
All right, Mustafa, thank you very much to have joined us. I hope that the world is listening. I hope that the world is going to react in a much more aggressive and proactive manner, because Pakistan needs not only the help of Pakistanis, but also the people across the world. This is a test for the world, because what has happened in Pakistan today, as I've said to Mustafa, could happen tomorrow, could in another country, in the West, in the East, in any other part of the world. We need to be ready, and all the important organizations, whether it be the United Nations, the G77, the SCO, the G20, they should all be mobilizing their efforts to address climate change and to work towards helping all the countries that are in need of assistance, just like Pakistan. Let's hope something tangible happens sooner than later. Thank you very much, Mustafa, to have joined us. Let's come to our second segment, and that concerns Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. Again, in their fresh acts of state terrorism, 2 youth have been martyred in Kashmir. This is an ongoing spate of incidents that has been happening in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir to pressurize the Muslims that are present here to refrain from asking for their right to self-determination. Will that actually happen? Because in fact, this is creating the opposite effect. Leaders across the world are also asking for India to rectify themselves as far as the Indian held region is concerned. More in the following report.
Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the highest militarized zone in the world, has really seen a peaceful day under brutal Indian occupation. India has tried every measure of suppression to curtail the legitimate demand of Kashmiri people, their right to self-determination. Indian troops in their fresh act of state terrorism martyred 2 Kashmiri youth in Kupwara district of occupied valley. According to Kashmir Media Service, both were slain by troops during the so-called cordon search operation in Takrinar area of Mashil in the district. Meanwhile, the Kashmir farmers and traders announced to shut fruit markets for 2 days from tomorrow against unnecessary hurdles created by Indian authorities. Talking to media in Srinagar, they said more than 8,000 fruit-laden trucks have been stranded in Srinagar-Jammu highway for the past many days, risking the livelihoods of around 70% population of Jammu and Kashmir connected to the industry. Meanwhile, in violation of international law governing the rights of nomadic people, Indian authorities have banned movement of Bakarwal families along with their livestock in Srinagar-Jammu highway, which will severely disturb their lives. As Indian apartheid regime has destroyed politico-economic fabric of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Kashmiris from across the years rallied in front of the UN building to renew their call for implementation of UN resolutions on Kashmir, exercise of the right to self-determination.
Hamid Khan al-Mashriqi, who is a leading analyst, joins us online. Hamid, thank you very much to have joined us. It had been some time that we had discussed on any issue on our show. So welcome back to our newsroom. Hamid, Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. All the Kashmiri leaders that have gotten together, whether it be in Geneva, in the United States, and of recent also we had Ghulam Nabi Fai and other Kashmiri leaders who gathered together when Mr. Jaishankar was addressing the United Nations General Assembly and talked about all the atrocities that have been happening in the Indian held valley, and that the international bodies like the UN need to take cognizance of that. I understand resolutions are there since decades, but when will it be time for the international organizations to actually, take some kind of tangible action against India or pressurize India as far as its atrocities in the Hell Valley are concerned?
Thank you very much, Umar. To be honest, it is actually very sad that, Kashmiris are fighting for their freedom for over 7 decades now, and it is a legitimate right to have the self-determination according to the United Nations resolutions. And now, Kashmiris have given over 80,000 lives during this period of 70 years, and they have been, asking for the fair, treatment from the world community. And unfortunately, the world have failed to provide the justice to the Kashmiris and for their lawful right of self-determination. And there is no doubt that, there is a maximum what Kashmiris can do by protesting outside Geneva, outside United Nations headquarters, wherever there is, any big event is happening and Indian representation is there. Kashmiri organizations are doing their protests. But unfortunately, as I always say, that the world have a hypocritical dual standard. When it comes to the disputes of Muslims, they have a different resolution or different approach towards those disputes. And whether it when there are issues like Ukraine or issues like Darfur in Sudan and other issues, they had a different approach towards to resolving the issues. And now this is the time when world has to be answerable to those poor Kashmiris who has not been martyred, killed, genocide, apartheid, and economically destroyed. I would like to say that there is no, option or no venue left for them to even survive within that Kashmir. They are living like a prison of 88 million people living in a prison. I mean, what else world wants to do? There for the last 3 years, when since they have taken over this 370, Article 370 and 35A, the Kashmiris' lives have gone worse and worse every day. And only thing is, I mean, India has done the tactics of domiciles, over 4 million domiciles been issued. India has done these killings on the names of search warrants, extrajudicial killings. India has economically, I should say, destroyed the farmers and the livelihood of Kashmiris. So, I mean, the world needs to pay attention before there is a big tragedy could occur there now. I mean, there is no media access, there is no free journalism there, there is nobody knows what exactly happens there unless, I mean, whatever we come to know is through the resources where there is atrocities from the Indian army.
That is so true. Hamid, I'd like to ask you personally, you come on many Indian channels to give Pakistan's point of view as far as Kashmir is concerned, as far as other, what is the Indian point of view from the Indian media's perspective as far as the Kashmir issue is concerned?
Umar, unfortunately, Indian media is very biased and driven by the RSS ideology policy. And that is the biggest sad thing. I always tell them that being a media person or being a media houses, they should be, neutral. They should not be biased towards anybody. But this is what their approach is, that they look into the eyes what Modi wants us to see or wants the world to see. They do not even do their own personal investigations on the ground. Unfortunately, the Indian media is very, very biased and against the reality of Kashmiri's life and against the way the Kashmiris are suffering. But I believe that there is a maximum they can hide from the public. Even Indian public, its own, they are misguiding them, misleading them. That even the Indian public knows that this media is not credible because they always have the fake and false news based on the RSS and BJP propaganda, Hindutva ideology propaganda. So when a person who's watching knows that there is no credibility of this media, then it is very sad. And I mean, for being a so-called biggest democracy in the world, it is really sad for Indian media.
All right, Hamid, while Mr. Jaishankar was addressing the UN General Assembly, there were leaders who were protesting outside. Narendra Modi was absent from the United Nations General Assembly for, of course, obvious reasons, because he knew that people will talk about the Indian-held Kashmir issue. Also, our Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif Saab talked about the Kashmir issue. I like to quote him. He said that India was seeking to turn the Muslim majority Jammu and Kashmir into a Hindu majority territory through illegal demographic changes. Now, let's talk of these demographic changes. I mean, terrorism is something that has become something of a daily routine as far as Indian-held Kashmir is concerned. Every day we hear of people being killed, people being put into jail, people being targeted one way or the other. No use of media whatsoever to really project the right image of what is actually happening in Indian-held Kashmir. And then on top of it, we have got these demographic situation, these changes that are happening, so that tomorrow or a year from now, whenever the plebiscite is held, India can say, now Muslims are no longer in a majority. Can something be done to stop these demographic changes?
I'll tell you, I mean, if you look into the reality that India has issued over 6 million domicile certificates to the Indian citizens who can adopt, residents of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which is the whole plan to change the demography, because this is the way they want to have maximum Hindus to be settled in Kashmir. But as the matter of fact, I'll tell you one thing, this plan has gone very I would say that towards failure because of the unity of the Kashmiris living there. They have openly said that they will not allow any non-Kashmiris to live there or to buy the lands and properties there, and they are not selling their properties to the non-Kashmiris, and they are strictly fighting for it. But of course, there is a biggest fear of that it is kind of apartheid. It is kind of the way they are doing the settlement. It is a classic example, like they did it in Israel and Palestine. So I mean, India is trying to copy that model, which is very, very dangerous, because it is a matter of 8 million people who have been fighting for their freedom. And I would say that India will, can try to do that, but I believe that India will fail in it, and they could not. We have seen a recent, their attempt to change by their legislative assembly seats, and still they could not manage to have the non-Muslim majority in their assembly. So this is what they are trying to do. They are trying to change it, but I believe that in the current situation, even the Indian residents are feared to settle in Kashmir because they know that there will be very heavy resistance from the local Kashmiris. They have tried to bring the people from Bihar, from other poor states of India, and they have tried to give them benefits. But I have seen, I have got the reports that they have failed to do it, but India is carrying on to do the demographic change by giving the domicile certificates. And one more worst thing they did is they have allowed the Indian army and soldiers to be the residents of Kashmir by whosoever have spent more than 3 years, even if their service is there, they can have a right of vote, they can have the right of residence in Kashmir, which is against the laws, which is against the resolutions of Kashmir, which is against the promises given by the Nehru, by Indira Gandhi, by Atal Bihari Vajpayee. All the Indian leadership have promised, the autonomousness of the Kashmiris, and it is against that they are giving the rights of vote to the
But
Indian
Hamid, you
soldiers
talk
in
about
the
all the
Kashmiri
promises
legal
that were
government.
made by Hamid, you talked about all the promises that were made by the previous Indian leaders. Now, is there no opposition to what the current Indian government is doing? Where is the opposition? Where is the Congress? Where are the Gandhis? Where are the other leaders that have been part of the Indian governance and the Indian government system for the last few decades? Why are they not raising a hue and cry on whatever is happening in Indian Kashmir? Why is nobody saying when people get killed every day, when youth get killed every day in some form of manifestation or whatever, cordon search operation or state barbarism or state terrorism in Indian Kashmir?
As you know, Umar, what in last 2 decades have happened, that anybody who speaks in favor of against these atrocities or in favor of Kashmiris, either it is from Indian National Congress, either it is from any Awam Admi party or any other political force, they have been called by the traitors from these extreme right-wing BJP, RSS goons. They call them traitors rather than, they are not willing to listen any opposition voices. And we have seen that in last two elections, BJP have swept away because of the Hindutva slogans, where they have been right-wing extremist nationalist slogans. And now they want to change the constitution from secular constitution to a Hindutva ideology constitution. And if you look into the situation, even Rahul Gandhi and Ghulam Nabi Azad and other leaders have talked about it, and they have been called traitors and others. But still, there are some voices which are not getting any media coverage. And we have seen that in last 2-3 years since this 370 and 35A article abrogation. So I believe that there are voices, but they are not getting limelight or they are not getting coverage by the media. Still, there are some voices, but not enough at all. And the whole Indian society is controlled by the right-wing extremist Hindutva ideology, which is very dangerous for Indian social fabric itself. India was so-called a secular country. It is not a secular country anymore, because this right-wing ideology have turned India into an extremist supporter country. We have seen what Indian extremists did in Leicester in last 4 weeks. We have seen what BJP supporters are doing across the world. So world needs to take the notice. World needs to understand when there is an extremist right-wing government is in power.
All right, it's very interesting that you say the world needs to understand. Hamid, it's very interesting you say that the world needs to understand, because we have had Dr. Gregory Stanton of Genocide Watch saying that over 200 million Muslims are liable to be killed one way or the other by by the Hindu majority of India under the current circumstances that India is embroiled in. You say the countries need to do it. Isn't this the time when the world should tell India, before India turns into a terrorist camp of its own, where all the Muslims will be victims and all the Hindus will be the ones who will be perpetrating these atrocities on them? Isn't it now the responsibility of the world body to stop India before it's too late, because this day is coming?
Of course, Umar, the responsibility lies on the rest of the world, where they are the protector of the humanity and they protect the human rights. The world is failed to understand that Hindutva ideology is not going to limit it to the Muslim genocide. They will go after Christians, they will go after Sikhs, they will go after any minority. But the only thing is, this is the time when the world has to give a shut-up call to the current Indian regime, to the current Indian fascist government. This fascist government have crossed all the limits, and now this is the time when all the voices from non-Muslim countries, from modern leadership like Britain, like
But you
France,
talk
like
of non-Muslim
America.
countries, Hamid. I think the major voice should be coming from the Muslim countries, from the OIC, from all the important Muslim leaders that are present across the world of what is happening. We also, you must have read the report very recently that more than 55% of the Islamophobic content is generated from within India online.
Exactly.
Not only are they perpetrating the atrocities on the Muslims within Indian held Kashmir and within India, but they are also portraying this image against Islam,
Of
against
course.
Muslims across the world.
Of course, Umar, that was what EU Disinfo Lab was. I mean, my research thesis was one of the part of my research thesis was based on propaganda and disinformation by the Indian media houses and propaganda houses, which is doing this Islamophobic content all over the world. There is no doubt about it. When you say that OIC and Islamic countries should take part as well, I always say that yes, they are already failed to do so much which they could have done it, especially the Arab countries where they could have put so much pressure on Indians because there are millions of Indians working in Arab countries. They need to come forward. They need to put pressure. But the only reason I say that non-Muslim countries should come forward because now the world dynamics are changing. Now there are conflicts like Ukraine and Russia. Now there are conflicts where non-Muslim countries are affected. So why don't they understand that all the conflicts and all the atrocities has to be treated equally? That's the only way forward for the peace of the world. If these modern non-Muslim countries are acting as the custodian of the peace on the planet Earth, then they have to take actions against these atrocities done by the Indian soldiers, done by the Indian security forces, and by the government as a state policy to do maximum to kind of a genocide against Muslims and the minorities. They are not doing it only for the Muslims. They are doing it with a planning to targeting the rest of the minorities as well.
All right. Hamid, finally, I'd like to understand in a very short answer why this demarcation in the West or in the countries across the world as far as the atrocities towards the Muslims and towards the non-Muslims is concerned. And I'm talking about, you said it yourself, what is happening in Ukraine and how the immigrants from Ukraine are being, received with open arms. Because they are non-Muslim, and how there is a very different approach when it comes to Muslims, whether it be in Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir or whether it be in Palestine. Why is that so? What is the basis or philosophy behind this demarcation? Short answer, Hamid sir.
To be honest, it has exposed the hypocrisy of the Western world, where the host and where the many people were staying and differentiating because of their colors of their eyes and skin. This has exposed the hypocrisy, and I'll tell you, the Europe and the rest of the world will pay a price for this hypocrisy and double standard. I believe that this is the time. This is maybe they have much less time left to understand that they have to be fair with all conflicts. Otherwise, they will be blamed in coming future when any big tragedy will happen on this earth.
I think the big tragedy that you're just talking about is right around the corner, and the world really needs to take tangible action before that tragedy actually happens. Because if it happens, Hamid Saab, it will not only affect India, the Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir region, but the entire region, the entire subcontinent, Pakistan and all the other countries as well. So of course, let's hope that some kind of action comes from the West, from the non-Muslim countries, as you yourself said as well. Thank you very much, Hamid Khan al-Mashriqi, leading analyst, talking about illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the recent incidents of 2 youth being killed in state-sponsored terrorism-related incidents. And this is something that is going on and on in the Indian Hill Valley. We have to talk about it. We talk about it on our national channel. More needs to be talked about it and discussed so that the West understands Pakistan and other countries' perspective as to what is really happening in the Indian Hill Valley. Let's come to our last 2 stories. The first, of course, is a very sad event that has happened. 6 Pakistani army officials have been martyred in a Harnai helicopter crash. On Monday, 6 Pakistan Army officials, including 2 majors, were martyred after a helicopter crash during a flying mission near Khost in Harnai in Balochistan. Their funeral prayers were also offered today, and grief has poured in from all the quarters, whether it be from our Prime Minister, from our President, from the different political parties as well. This is a very, very sad incident. 6 martyred, including 39-year-old Major Khurram Shahzad, 30-year-old Major Khurram Munib Afzal, 44-year-old Subedar Abdul Wahid, 27-year-old Sepoy Muhammad Imran, 30-year-old Naik Jalil, and 35-year-old Sepoy Shoaib. This unfortunate incident is not the first. We've also seen in the past such incidents that have happened. On the 1st of August, we all remember how an army helicopter with 6 people on board, including Commander 12th Corps, Lieutenant General Sarfaraz Ali, also lost contact, and then they were martyred. We can only pray for the souls of those who have been martyred, who've lost their lives, and we condole with their families. We stay in solidarity with them as we have been. The soldiers are the front runners as far as Pakistan's defense is concerned. They've always stood for Pakistan, and thanks to their valuable services, Pakistan is still independent. Pakistan can still call itself somewhere where people can breathe their fresh relief, a sigh of relief of being in a country that is independent, thanks to our armed forces. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, let's come to the European Union and specifically to Italy. Italian right-wing leader Giorgia Meloni, his party has come on top as far as the general elections in Italy that were recently held is concerned. She says she will seek to lead the next government, and she says she is going to work for all the Italians. She says, we will not betray your trust. Now, Meloni's Brothers of Italy party has come on top in the Italian elections. According to the first exit polls, her party has won between 22% and 26% of the vote. And of course, in coalition with her allies, Matteo Salvini's right-wing League and former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi's Forza Italia, they will be taking a clear majority. But this for some is a good omen, for others it isn't, because it is nevertheless a right-wing party, and we've seen the emergence of right-wing parties in many countries in the European Union. We have also seen it in different other countries where people have voiced their concern. Let's hope, as Giorgia Meloni says, that she is going to work for all her people, for Italy and for Italians, irrespective of race, creed or religion. Only time will tell how and well that will happen. Our best wishes to Ms. Meloni, and may Italy rise to the occasion under her new government. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with news story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe, help the flood victims as much as you can. Allah Hafiz.